So for those of you who haven't used Illustrator before, I'll just give you a brief, a brief overview of the tools that you need to do this. So we're not going very deep into Maya, we're not going very deep into Illustrator, but there are a few things you need to know. So you need to have the tool palette open. All of these things, sorry, how do I escape that? Hold on one second. Okay. So we need the tools palette here. And all of these things can be found under the window menu, and you can turn on tools here, the default palette. We need the layers palette. That's also under Windows layers. By default, both of these should be open, but you never know. And so when you're working in a digital format like this using Photoshop or Illustrator, sorry, I'm just trying to shrink my palette here. There we go. You want to work in layers. So you think of layers as transparent acetates or something where you can draw on it, and then places you don't draw you can still see through, so you can have stacks of these things. And so when we bring in an image, we want to put it on its own layer and then make another layer by pressing the new layer button down here to draw on top of it. So here on layer 1, I'm going to double click on this and call this render or something. And I'm going to place that image that I rendered out here. So to place an image in Illustrator, you go to File and Place. And we can just navigate to where I saved that. Now one thing you definitely want to do is turn off this link button here. If that's turned on and then you move the location of this, it will not be able to find it. So we'll just turn that off and then place this. And we'll just click on the scene. Now you'll see it's a really big render. So for navigating around in Illustrator, most of the time you use this this black arrow to select things, and then the space bar held down to move around. So it's frustratingly different than Maya. So when you're jumping back and forth, you'll go crazy. And if you want to zoom in, you can use the Option Alt key and the scroll wheel to move in and out. So if I want to scale this down a little bit, I can just grab the corner of this and start to drag it, and then hold down Shift to make sure it doesn't, if I don't hold down Shift, it will do something like this. If I do hold down Shift, it will maintain its aspect ratio. So now we've got this thing here as a reference that we can trace. So this is on the render layer here, and I'm just going to lock this layer now. And I'm going to draw up here on layer 2. Now I'm going to show you 3 things, basically, that you need to do to draw in Illustrator using the pen tool. And this can be a frustrating learning experience, but we're not doing anything too complicated. So the pen tool here, so we need the black arrow, we're going to need the white arrow, and the pen tool. And that's mostly it for today. So the pen tool, if we select that and make sure we're on layer 2 here, we start to click and drag, then go around and close it up, it makes what's called a path. And right now mine is filled with white color with no stroke. So the stroke is the color of the line itself. So I can change that by clicking on this, sorry it's hard to see, this little button down here to give it a black stroke and a white fill. And then we can select the fill and just turn it off with this red line. So we're going to use this just to draw around the outline of this thing here. this calcaneus. So it's got a black background, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to see the black stroke. So we can just click on the stroke, this square here, double click, and we can choose a different color, something that's going to be easy to see. So we're going to use a light blue, something like that. And then we can start to draw on here. So again, making sure I'm on the layer above, I can start to click and draw to trace around. I'm going to do a bad job of it to begin. So I'm capturing the shape. And so what you'll notice is that when I click and drag, it pulls out these handles. And while I'm still dragging, I can change the shape of these handles. These are called Bezier handles. And it will change the line segment between this anchor point and the one that came before. And I can change the shape of the line. So usually click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Okay? But when I get to sharp corners, like here when I want to change the angle, I have to do something a little bit different. So here, for example, I want to go around here, so I'm going to click, and I drag generally in the direction where I don't drag backwards this way when I want to go to the right. I'm going to click, drag to capture the shape of this, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And then when I get to this corner down here, I can click in the corner and drag, but then when I don't want it to be curved, if I hold down Option Alt, you can see I can bend that handle. It's called breaking the handle, and I can change the direction of the line. So I'm going to stop talking in a minute and let you guys all try this. So if I want to edit this line, make changes to it, that's where the white arrow comes in. So if I use the white arrow, I can select the components of this and I can reshape it. So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time you do it. You can click and drag, and if you want to bend afterwards, if you go onto the end of the handle, hold down Alt, you can bend there. These are really the only moves you need to know. Click and drag. When you get to a corner, click and drag, then hold down Alt. If you need to select the entire object, the black arrow will do that. Okay, so what I want you to do is to render out an image once you download the Maya file of the anterior view of the gorilla calcaneus. Bring it into Illustrator, draw an outline like this around the entire thing on one layer, and then draw 3 outlines around this articular facet here, this articular facet here, and then this sort of strangely shaped articular facet here. And we'll use this in your actual assignment, but this will give me a chance to make sure everybody figures out the workflow for this part. Okay? Any questions? There will be questions as soon as you try it, but I'd rather you just started trying it. Okay, good. So get going on that, and I'll come around and make sure